the 5 main drivers that calculate and create your credit score in 2023. There are 5 factors. Number 1, 35% of your credit score is made up of making your payments on time. On-time payment history is the foundation. 35% of your credit score comes from making your payments on time. Number 2, credit utilization. 30% of your credit score is how you treat credit cards. If you max them out, your credit's going to go down. If you keep that balance below 45, 30% of the limit, you're going to have a much higher credit score. That is 30% of your credit score. No one ever teaches us about this. 15% of your credit score is the average age of your accounts. So that's why grandma and grandpa oftentimes have really good credit, because they have accounts they've had open for decades. So don't close that credit card account. Keep it open. That's going to increase your average age of accounts. That's 15% of your credit score. 10% of your credit score is a good mix. Do you have mortgages? Do you have car loans? Do you have credit cards? A good mix of credit. The credit score system likes that. That's 10%. And the final 10% that everyone talks about that's going to ruin their life is new accounts and credit inquiries. It does make up just 10% of your credit score. So those are the 5 drivers that create your credit score in 2023. Let's dive into number 1, on-time payment history. You know, what can we say about that maybe people don't quite understand?
Well, my advice on this one, Leo, is it's 2023. I hope you don't have an account out there that does not allow automatic payments. If you do, it's probably time to shift and start don't close it. We'll talk about that later, but shift and start using an account that allows automatic payments. You should never, ever, ever have a late payment. Right? I go in, what I do, I don't say do the automatic payment on my payment date. I have it set up so that it will always make the minimum required payment no matter what, and it'll do that 5 days before the payment date, just to ensure it will always get paid on time for that minimum monthly payment. If I want to go in and pay more, I go in and pay more. But turning on the minimum monthly payment 5 days before the payment due date will pretty much guarantee you never have a late payment.
Guys, super big credit hack value bomb. Ty just dropped on you right there. If you don't have auto pay on your minimum monthly payment of every single account you've got, whether it's a mortgage, car loan, or credit card, and if you're not making it before the actual due date, you're putting your credit at risk. You're putting the fact that you're going to pay higher interest at risk, late fees, all these different factors that people don't realize. And yet, incredibly, in 2023, a lot of people still don't have auto pay on. And I think a lot of that comes down to I'm still spending more than I'm making. So please understand exactly how much money's coming into your bank account every single month. Understand what your budget is and go through and be like, all right, I'm going to have to stop eating out. I'm going to have to cut some things out so that I have enough room that I can put my money on auto pay, because if you can't put it on auto pay, then the odds of you screwing up and damaging your credit are pretty damn high. So please use auto pay. Huge value bomb Ty just dropped for you. Now, that said, let's say you get into a bind. You had a medical emergency and insurance only covered so much, and so you had to come up with some extra money. A lot of the times you can put those on payment plans. You don't have to worry about it. They're not going to put it into collections. If you talk to them, communicate, put it on a payment plan. I mean, I remember years ago we had all sorts of medical emergencies, and times were tough, and we had things on payment plan, and they never sent it to collection because we communicated well and did a payment plan. So you can always do that. But let's say some emergency happens and you just don't have the money, and so you can't make the payment on time. But you're going to get paid, and you're going to make the payment 2 weeks later. Well, here's the secret. They're not going to report it late to the credit bureaus until you're officially 30 days late. So if you get into a bind, you just need to be able to make that payment electronically before the 30th day, and it's not going to impact your credit. You're going to pay late fees. You need to get current. You need to, reduce your budget and avoid any variable expenses, eating out, going to movies, things like that, until you can get on top of things. But if you do that, then you can still save your credit. Same thing, if you pass 30 days, 60 days is the next thing. If you're 58 or 59 days, they won't hit a 60-day late, and a 60-day late is way worse than a 30-day late, et cetera, et cetera. So understand how those things work, but please use AutoPay.
Absolutely. And sometimes if you're really, really dire too, you can do the old rob Peter to pay Paul technique, where if you have more than one credit card and all of your balance is here, well, take a little piece of that balance and do a balance transfer to your credit card company. It looks like a payment. So you can balance transfer off whatever your payment is, maybe a little bit more than that. If you need to keep doing that for a couple months and kind of go back and forth, you can. It's not ideal. I mean, suggested would be go out and make a little bit of extra money, find a little side hustle so you can make that payment, but you can always transfer things back and forth a little bit if needs be.
And that's one of the things I always see, the difference between rich, wealthy people and those who are middle class or poor is, and it's super important to have that budget and save money, of course, as much as possible. But at the end of the day, if you make more money, it's way easier to save money. It's way easier to have a budget that you can stay within. It's way easier to still be able to take your family on trips. So focusing on making more money, learning new skills with the side hustle is what you can actually control in your life. And then, of course, doing your best to stick within a budget is next. But at the end of the day, if you can make more money, that's usually the number one way to have a good credit score after you understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. And that is a great segue into the bad debt section, right? So 30% of your credit score is credit utilization. And this is the number one factor that for most people, because at the end of the day, we've had a lot of clients who they come to us looking for funding for a business, and they're starting a brand new business, and, I've always paid my credit on time. I've got great credit. Oh, shoot, they apply. It comes in at a 635 or a 640. And the number one reason that happens is because they've got maxed out credit cards. So what is it about credit utilization that people need to understand, and why this makes up 30% of their credit score?
I think the first thing they need to understand is what credit utilization actually is, what revolving credit utilization actually is, because a lot of people confuse their debt to income ratio and their utilization ratio, right? And there's a big difference here. If you have a loan, a personal loan for $10,000, that is not impacting your utilization ratio. That is not a revolving line of credit. It's impacting your debt to income, right? Your debt to income is how much money do I make? How much are my bills? What is that ratio, right? Whereas your utilization is what percent of my available revolving credit am I currently utilizing? So if you have a $10,000 credit card and you have $5,000 on it, you are at a 50% utilization ratio. And the important factor here, Leo, is to make sure not just your overall utilization's below about 35%, but you want each individual account below 30 to 35%, especially if you're going to go out and try and get more capital, because they're going to look at each individual account, not just your overall.
So, Ty, I was watching Dave Ramsey, and he told me I need to cut up my credit cards and close my credit card accounts. I got this $10,000 Capital One. It's a high interest rate. I don't want to use it, so I'm just going to cut it up and close it. Good idea or bad idea?
It's a terrible idea.
Oh, Dave.
Practice some self-discipline. If you're worried about that card, get that card paid down and put the card in the safe. Put it away so you don't touch it. But do not close that account ever. That's a terrible idea.
It's funny. I remember when I was in 8th grade in Beaver, down in southern Utah, that is. And I was playing with a guy named Dave, and he was a funny guy. He played point guard, and he was a funny guy. And I would say, damn it, Dave, make a better pass. And so I think sometimes with Dave Ramsey, I have to say, damn it, Dave, listen, credit cards are not bad. It's the misuse of them. It's almost like people like, money is the root of all evil. No, love of money is the root of all evil. If you understand money as a tool, it's not the root of all evil. It's kind of the same thing here. Credit cards are not the root of all evil. Misusing them, that is what you want to avoid. And so as Dave says, avoid bad debt. There's good debt, bad debt, etc. But you just have to be disciplined. But when you close that credit card, you lower your credit score, you lower your ability to get better financing, and it will cost you big time. So please never, ever close a credit card.
You actually lowered your utilization, or higher your utilization for that matter, because what's happening is if you have a credit card and you have no balance on it, that's helping your utilization ratio. So you should always keep those accounts open, not just for the age of credit, but for the utilization purposes. So if you do have to put a balance on a credit card, you still have that extra availability on that other one to keep utilization ratios lower.
Exactly. So here's a really simple example, guys, of how credit utilization works. It's 30% of your credit score. Let's say I have one $5,000 credit card, and I've maxed it out, and over here I've got a $5,000 credit card with no balance. And so, I was not disciplined. I'm going to close this credit card, and then I'm going to avoid using it, and this is going to be great for me. I close it, and now I've got $5,000 maxed out, and this other 5,000 that was available, my overall utilization, I was at 50%, 5,000, and the other 5 is 10. So I was using 5,000 out of 10,000. I still had 5,000 available. Now that's gone. Now this is maxed out, and now my credit score legitimately just tanked maybe 60, 70, 80, as much as 100 points.
Yeah, and that's no exaggeration. We see that all the time. We see it on the adverse side as well, where people come in and say, Ty, I need to get access to capital. I look at their credit, say, well, you're 100% utilized on your revolving credit. The good news is your DTI is still really strong. Your debt to income is still really strong. So we'll get you a loan, use that loan to pay the credit cards down to 30%. I'll see their score jump, like you just said, literally 60, 70, 80, even 100 points, because utilization has such a big impact on their credit.
So here's a huge credit hack, and Ty has made this clear in this value bomb for you. Before you go apply for a mortgage, a business loan, a new credit card, a car loan, student loan, whatever loan you're applying for, make sure you pay your credit card balances down before applying, and then they actually need to update with the credit bureaus. That one thing, if you can have your credit card balances at 30 to 40% or less of your limits, it's a $10,000 card, the balance is $3,000 or $4,000. If you do that, your score is going to be higher. You're going to pay less interest. Big credit hack that no one's taught us. So write that one down and share that one with everyone you know.
And the key that Leo just said there is you have to wait for that to reflect. You can't go to the bank 2 days after you made your payment and say, hey, my utilization's corrected. They don't care what your credit card statement looks like. They care what's on the credit report. And so the way you do that, there's 2 ways. You can get a credit report, and each individual account, right, if it's my American Express, on my American Express section, it'll say report date or balance date. But the other way you can do that, if you don't have access to a credit report or don't want to get a credit report, look at your payment due date, not the day you made the payment, your official payment due date on your credit card statement or on your account online. Give it about 5 days, 5 to 7 days after that payment due date, and it should almost always be reflected with the credit bureaus. I'd get a report to be certain about it, but that is one way you can do it, is look at the payment due date, wait about 5 days.
Huge credit hack there for you guys. All right, so we've talked about 35% of your credit is on-time payment history. 30% is credit utilization, how you utilize credit cards and keep those balance to limit ratios low. Number 3 in the credit driving factors is your average age of account history. This is 15% of your credit score. And again, this kind of goes back to that same idea of, if I've had a credit card for a long time, I just think I should close it. How does that impact my average age of account history now?
Yeah, it has a massive impact because it's an average, right? You look at this account's 18 years old, this account's 10 years old, this account's 5 years old. They're taking an average of all of those numbers. And if you close that account that's 18 years old, that one's no longer counted towards your average. So your average age of credit history just went down astronomically by closing the oldest account. In fact, when I was over there, I bought out my lease on my truck recently. And so I was able to switch it to an auto loan. And while I was there, they said, hey, by the way, you've had this card with us since, I want to say it was like 2011. It was one of my oldest credit. It was the oldest credit card I had on my file. And my actual banker was like, we have this new credit card now. We can switch you up to it. It has better cash back, better rewards. The only variable is we'd have to close this account in order to give you this one. But don't worry, it's not going to, and starts pitching her case on why
it won't actually
this should happen.
Credit.
And
false.
I literally was like, sounded like that cat that, like, you know, is hissing at you, like, get away, like, don't touch that card, don't touch that account. That's my oldest account. You absolutely do not close that. And most people, if their banker is telling them, oh, close that, it doesn't matter, let's get you into this new card, they're going to do it in a heartbeat. But by understanding closing the oldest card that you have is going to have a massive impact on your credit, don't ever do it.
Keep those accounts open, my friends, because it's going to keep your credit score high. And it's about that average age of account history. The longer you go keeping those accounts open, that's why Grandma and Grandpa, who opened an account up in the 80s, their credit score is 800, because such a big percentage of the credit is utilization. It is on-time payment, but 15% of it is the average age of account history. So keeping those accounts in good standing and open for the duration. And the interesting thing is, like, all loans except maybe a mortgage, but as much as we move and refinance in this country, the average mortgage is maybe 4 or 5 years. So it's really only credit cards. Again, it's so funny how so much misinformation or just misunderstanding from a Dave Ramsey or somebody out there who says, close your credit cards bad, cut them up, close them up. But that's the only way you can really build your average age of account history, because car loans, you pay off. Mortgages, you buy and sell. The average mortgage lasts like 5 years in this country. We were just meeting with a mortgage guy. That's what he was telling us. Student loans, maybe those open a little bit longer, unfortunately, but even they get paid off. The only account that stays open for your whole life is a credit card account. And so if you're keeping that open, that's really a secret weapon to have a great credit score. And if you close that old credit card, that hurts your credit. Plain and simple.
Yeah, even home equity lines of credit expire.
Yes. But that's also not a bad idea. Home equity line of credit, a good account that you can usually keep open for a while. But yeah, they get upset, maybe if you don't use it for 4 or 5 years and maybe threaten to close it. But so average age of accounts, 15%. Keep those accounts open.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, next, fourth driving factor in your credit score is loans, cards, mortgages. Basically, when my mom was young, when I was young, my mom was still young. She was teaching me, and she's like, Leo, I want you to be good at sports. I want you to play the piano for a half hour every day. You have to have a 4.0 perfect grade point average. And Leo, you need to read all these books. And she had this thing where you have to be well-rounded. You need to be good at everything. And, it helped out with college applications. And just to her credit, amazing. All 9 of her kids have gotten scholarships. My youngest brother, Teddy, full ride scholarship to Stanford, which that is
Wow.
really, really difficult to do. Props to him. And props to my mom for helping all 9 of her kids come out of Beaver, Utah, and get 9 scholarships to different schools across the country. Great job. But anyway, she's like, you've got to be well-rounded. And when it comes to credit, the same thing is true. If you are well-rounded in credit and you have different types of credit, then the credit bureaus like that.
Yeah, you're diversified, right? You're showing them, hey, I know how to manage a credit card. I know how to manage revolving accounts and take care of my utilization. I know how to manage a loan and make a consistent payment over 5-year terms. I know how to manage secured accounts like an auto loan or a mortgage. So it just looks good in a lender's eyes to see that you know and understand the different levels of credit, the different aspects of credit that could be extended to you.
And over the years, as you and I have looked at like hundreds of thousands of credit reports, I think we've seen 2 types of clients out there who fail this one factor that's, the fourth biggest driver in your credit score. And it's that you have that one type of client who all they have are credit cards. They've never had a car loan. They've never had a personal loan. They've never had a mortgage. And so all they have are credit cards. And a lot of the times, lenders don't like that because they see that person is likely to get in trouble because all they've had are those. They've never actually had any loans. And then on the other side of the factor, you see someone who has had 1 mortgage for 10 years, and they've had maybe 2 car loans, and they have no credit cards. And that means they have no available credit limit, which is killing 30% of their credit score with credit utilization, but it's also killing them on the 10% that is, I as a lender want to see that you have mortgages, car loans, and credit card history. And if you're missing out and all you have is loans or all you have is cards, then it's kind of like you have an incomplete file, and it's going to hurt you.
Yeah, it's wild to see because you can still have a decent credit score because we see this is 10%. 10% of your score is the well-rounded aspect of it. So people will come in and apply for a credit card with a 760 credit score, a 780 credit score, but never had any credit cards before. They'll only get $1,000. Then you see someone with a 730, a much lower credit score, but they have all this variety. They have loans, they have a bunch of different credit cards, they have some high limit credit cards, and that exact person will get $20,000, $25,000, $30,000. So we see that day in and day out, having the balance, having the balance of different types of accounts, not carrying a balance, but having a balance of different accounts, making sure you have credit cards, making sure you have loans, you will get qualified for much higher limits.
All right, guys, that was number 4. So the mixture, the well-rounded different types of accounts you want to have a high credit score. And the 5th and final factor driving your perfect credit score for the rest of your life is, drum roll please, inquiries and new accounts, right? And so all those loan officers across the country have done a wonderful job of letting you know that credit inquiries are going to ruin your life and you need to avoid credit inquiries because really they just don't want you to go down the road and work with that other loan officer. They don't want you to work with them, which I get that. And credit inquiries do make a big difference in unsecured business funding and unsecured financing. Personally, there's no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, credit inquiries do make up just 10% of your credit scores. And so when it comes to credit inquiries, one of the interesting things about credit inquiries that I think a lot of people don't know, Ty, is they think, oh, these credit inquiries are really bad. And it depends on how thick your credit is, right?
Yeah.
If I'm that 35-year-old female professional mom, and I've got mortgage history and cars, and life is busy, and I didn't set up the auto pay, and whatever, I was late on a couple things, and I have a 693 FICO score, and I go get 4 or 5 inquiries. Well, because I have such a thick credit history, those inquiries are having very little impact on my credit versus I'm 23 years old and I've got 2 $500 credit cards with Capital One and Discover, and I think I've got a 750 credit score. Now I go get 5 inquiries on that little thin credit profile. Well, Bobby's credit just tanked. And, the 35-year-old mom, her credit's still really good because she has a thick profile and the inquiries don't hurt her, even though she's been late in her history. But Bobby, who just has never been late, perfect credit score, but he just doesn't have a lot, the inquiries are going to really impact him where they're not going to impact her.
Yeah, and when we say really impact in a situation like Bobby, you're probably looking at, if he went out and did 3 new applications, maybe a 15-point credit score drop, whereas the other scenario may only see a 3, 4, 5-point credit drop. But the big factor is here, first and foremost, understand the difference between a hard credit pull and a soft credit pull, because a soft credit pull is not going to put an inquiry on your credit. You can go to Experian.com and get your credit report for free, actually. You can go in and get your scores for free, and that is a soft check. That's not going to impact your credit. You can get your own credit. If a lender's reaching out to you and says, hey, let's do a soft credit check first, let's see where you stand, that is not an inquiry. A hard credit check is what's going to put an inquiry on your credit. And again, it's 10% of your credit score. It's not the end of the world if you get a few inquiries. In fact, it's inevitable. And what we found is that by adding these new accounts, by having more availability, which lowers your utilization, it's going to totally outweigh the negative of a 2 to 3 point per inquiry credit drop.
The other thing we'll say about credit inquiries that you need to know is credit inquiries impact unsecured funding a lot more than secured funding, not so much in the credit score, but whether you get approved. So if I'm applying for something that's secured, meaning collateral, like I'm getting a mortgage, a car loan, a home equity line of credit, a boat loan, my inquiries are going to have much less of an impact getting that secured financing versus if I'm trying to get no collateral financing to start a business and I need to qualify for some business credit cards, or I need to get that personal loan to pay my credit cards down. Inquiries are going to play a really big part when it comes to getting unsecured, no collateral financing versus if it's secured. So that's kind of the final word there on inquiries. But there it is, my friends, just to review the 5 big factors determining your credit score here in 2023: 35% on-time payment history, 30% credit utilization with credit cards and maxing or getting those balances below 30 to 40% of the limit. Again, 15% is going to be the average age of account history. 10% is your credit mix, having loans and credit cards. And then the final 10% is inquiries and new accounts. There it is, my friends. There's your credit secrets.